Basic, and I'm your host for tonight. Welcome to another First Thursday event from the Space Coast Progressive Alliance. Tonight we have a fascinating program, one sadly that we have covered before. I hope we don't have to cover again, but we probably will. And that is about homelessness in Brevard County. Frankly, homelessness all across our nation. Our event is called Unaffordable Housing Leads to Homeless Families. And we're going to be looking at the homeless issue from a little bit different perspective tonight, and that is the core of how to get people into a place that they can call home. In the richest country in the world, it is unacceptable that we still have so many people that are unhoused. And we're going to be talking about those issues tonight with two spectacular speakers. First, Amber Carroll. She's the executive director of the Brevard Homeless Coalition. Also, Jeff Noose. He is the executive director of Daily Bread and Providence Place. We were going to have Keith Donald. Unfortunately, couldn't make it tonight, but he is the director of Steadytown, and he will be an important part of a larger discussion that we'll hopefully have some other day. But our two keynote speakers tonight will be very interesting. We'll all be interested to learn more about this issue, and we're going to be going there in just a few moments. We have a little bit of business to do before we get to our speakers. But we are very, very glad that you're here. Of course, we have the program being recorded, so it's viewable on YouTube at a later date. Those that have joined us tonight will be able to participate in a question and answer session after the panel has spoken, and you'll have the chance to talk to Amber and Jeff directly. Hopefully, you'll be able to get some of your questions answered. They're great people. They'll be fun to talk to. It's an interesting topic. It's a tough topic. But we are so glad that you're here tonight, and we're very, very thankful to have all of you tuned in with us. I'm going to hand the floor over to the Space Coast Progressive Alliance president, Karen Houston. Karen, you have the floor.
Thank you, Phil. And of course, thank you to our wonderful panelists tonight for being here with us. We're delighted to bring light to some of the things that's happening around, especially in Brevard with the homelessness. I also want to thank Vicki and Poco, who helped me with this project, and Janice Moran, who's our Action Projects Committee chair, and the entire Action Projects Committee committee itself. So they work hard on these events every month, and I appreciate them so very much. So I thank you to all of you for getting this timely and important program going tonight. The next topic is right now under discussion. We will get, you can always go to scpaflorida.com to find out what's happening with us. We just had a little snafu on it, but we're working on it. And we hope to have that ready for you to check out on scpaflorida.com, which is our website. You can also find SCPA on YouTube. And so we hope that you'll go back and check and see what our next discussion is our next event will be about. And I've already mentioned scpaflorida Florida.com. So I'm going to turn it over. I don't know if Carol is here. I haven't seen her.
But, I'm here. Can you hear
okay.
me?
All right, wonderful. Our memberships and contributions will be discussed by our treasurer, Carol Becker. So go for it, Carol.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Memberships, we're always happy to have people join our organization. You can go onto our website, scpaflorida.com. Family memberships for $35, individual memberships $25, and $10 for students. You can always write a check to SCPA, P.O. Box 412, Melbourne, Florida 32902. And we'd be happy to have you all join and support our organization. Thanks.
Thank you, Carol. I appreciate you so very much as well. So every event that we have, we always have action items, and we ask our panelists, our guests, to give us an action item so that we can take it not just on this screen, but back to the wider community so people understand what's going on around them. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to ask our panelists tonight to think of an action item. And we're going to ask you, those of you who are here with us tonight on this Zoom, to take heed to that action item and do something about it. Homelessness is a sad situation throughout Brevard. I used to see it a lot, even where I worked. So this program is just too, the situation is too vast not to share it and help people understand what's going on. So I'm going to go back to Phil. Back to you, Phil.
Thank you so much, Karen. And again, thank you so much for your service tonight. Karen, again, hey, in the coming year, we've got a lot to cover. And our next event, by the way, will be on Thursday, March 7th. Again, we're not exactly certain where this is going to go, but we know that you'll want to join us on Thursday, March 7th, first Thursday of March. And I would like to open the floor, as we always do, for anybody in the community that has an announcement. We certainly would be happy to give you the floor for a minute and allow you to make your announcement for your organization. So I can't actually, in my current display, I can't see people's hands, but if you have a announcement, please raise your hand. Use as we'll be doing later in the Q&A section, in the lower right corner of your screen, you can hit the reaction button, and the reaction button will open, and you can hit the little thing that says raise hands.
Phil, we have Daniel McDowell and Darlene. Daniel was first hand up. So
good. In which case, Daniel McDowell, you have the floor.
Great, thank you. It's good to be with everyone this evening. My name is Councilman McDowell from great city of West Melbourne, and also a candidate for our U.S. Congress District Florida 8, which is encompasses Brevard County as well as Indian River. Especially interested in hearing this as I'm involved with the Prosperity Initiative, part of the Florida Chamber of Commerce, and looking forward to it. So thank you. Good to be here.
Thank you very much, Daniel. And anybody else that has
Darlene is next.
Darlene Hillers, you have the floor.
Okay. Hi, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I am a volunteer with the Florida Right to Clean Water Initiative. We were collecting petitions and hoping to get it on the ballot so that we could vote for our fundamental right to clean water in 2024. But unfortunately, we didn't collect enough signed petitions, so we're restarting the campaign to get it on the ballot in 2026. So I'm asking you to please go to our website, floridarighttocleanwater.org. We also have a Facebook page by the same name, Florida Right to Clean Water, where we post information updating where we are and what we're doing. So we hope to be starting out collecting more petitions by the end of this month. And if you would like to volunteer to help us do that, or if you would care to donate to the cause, we're also doing a fundraising drive. So again, please go to floridarighttocleanwater.org and sign up and help us get it on the ballot, because we all want clean and healthy water. It's a nonpartisan issue. All 4 political parties are in favor of it. So for more information, please go to the website. And thank you for listening, and have a good evening.
Thank you, Darlene. We are all in for clean water, and this is a very good effort. And we have covered this previously in an SCPA program. Hopefully, we'll be able to cover it again for the coming year or so. I guess it's going to be a couple-year effort to get this back on the ballot in the next election cycle. And thank you very much, Darlene. I see Anthony Yance has his hand up. Anthony, please, you have the floor for a minute.
Well, hello, thank you, and everybody. I appreciate you all coming on here and being a part of this amazing group. My name is Anthony Yance, and I'm the candidate for State Representative District 33, which encompasses most of all of Palm Bay, a tiny bit of West Melbourne, Melbourne Beach area, and some ins and outs, because it's, not a perfect rectangle. But one of the announcements that I had, actually 2, first, my wife is running for school board, District 3. So this is interesting, husband-wife combo here. It's never been done that I've ever found. And we just got really kind of tired of nobody stepping up to run for school board. So we did what we needed to do for her to run against John Thomas. And I am going to continue to run for State House. And this is going to be a family of taking on Brevard. So that's the first announcement. The second announcement is we're creating a Politics in the Park event where the idea and the premise behind this is just to get people out. A lot of what we heard last election was they couldn't make it because they had they didn't want to bring their kids to a restaurant. They didn't want to bring their kids to somewhere busy. But this, I'm hoping, can get some families out, have their kids play, okay? And then they're occupied playing, and we can have some solid conversations right next to the park. So Politics in the Park is going to be happening this February 3rd. This Saturday is the first one ever. It's going to be at Veterans Memorial right off Port Malabar, and it's going to be from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Now, I will tell you this event is on Facebook, and it is very fluid. So this is, again, our very first time doing this. My goal is to have elected officials, candidates, and anybody that wants to come and chat about what's important to them in our communities. As we go further on, I'm hoping to continue doing these at various parks around our district, but then I hope it evolves into parks all over the county, because I think, why not use our free space, our green spaces, to our advantage? And so those are my two announcements. And again, I thank you all for being here.
And thank you,
Vote
Anthony.
Yance. Vote
Yes.
Yance squared.
Here's a question for you, Anthony, and that is, do you have a website that viewers can go to
Yep.
see both of your campaigns?
Awesome. So my website is standwithyance.com. And the last name is YANTZ, as in zebra. And then my wife's is going to be yanceforschools.com. And that is currently, it's almost done. But that is where you'll be able to go and read about that. But I encourage everybody to find us on social media because we're doing a lot on there as well.
And thank you, Anthony. I'd ask you that you please do share those websites in our chat. So
I will
that
do
folks
so.
can see that. And the same would go to, frankly, any of our speakers, that if you have an announcement to make and we didn't get to you, go ahead and put it in the chat. That way everybody can see your website, see what's going on. I have a quick announcement, actually, for those who are supporters of our environment here in Brevard County. The Brevard County Commission will be looking at the extension and execution of the EEL program. This is the Environmentally Endangered Lands Program, which we have fought for over the years to try to defend our wildlands here in Brevard County. The meeting they're going to be discussing this will be at the County Commission meeting area there in Vieira. That will be Tuesday, February 6th at 5 p.m. You can go to their website at brevardfl.gov, which is very good to go to. If you have never looked at the Brevard County Commission website, brevardfl.gov, to check that out. Again, they're going to be talking about the EEL program and whether they'll approve it. And I'll tell you what, if we have a good crowd of people who can come and support this, if you can't come, call or write to your county commissioner to support it. And once again, Tuesday, February 6th, 5 p.m. at the commission facility. So thank you to all of our speakers. And what I'd like to do very quickly is, again, for those who may have joined us, to remind you that you are with the Space Coast Progressive Alliance First Thursday event for February. Our event is called Unaffordable Housing Leads to Homeless Families. And we have a fantastic panel. Two people who were we had three people scheduled. One was unable to make it. Our leadoff tonight actually will be Jeff News. He is the executive director from Daily Bread and Providence Place. And then he's going to hand off to Amber Carroll. She's the executive director of the Brevard Homeless Coalition. And in absentia, the guy couldn't quite make it, but he's definitely here in spirit. Keith Donald, he's the executive director of Steady Town. Hopefully, we'll be able to hear from him sometime in the future. As we look at the problem of homelessness, not only in Brevard County, not only in the United States, but not only, but really, it's a phenomenon in every country, everywhere that you go. There are, for whatever reason, people who find themselves without a safe place to sleep. Unhoused people are everywhere, and it's a problem that we cannot turn away from. We cannot ignore it. We must, in all good conscience, work to solve this problem. And there are good people who are trying to solve this. And we have two of them here tonight. So what I'm going to do is just basically hand the floor over to Jeff Noose. Jeff, you have the floor. And again, we are so happy to have you here.
Thank you very much, Phil. And thank you to all of you for participating in this discussion tonight. I'm grateful for the Space Coast Progressive Alliance for tackling important issues that are affecting our community. And homelessness is definitely one of those significant issues. And homelessness is a complex issue. It's the kind of issue that can only be addressed when the whole community comes together. And the faces and voices on this call tonight are part of this important community that's looking to address this problem. There are some important participants missing. Amber is certainly an expert on homelessness. You could call me an expert on homelessness because I know a lot of homeless people, but the real experts are the people that are currently experiencing homelessness. And as we begin our discussion tonight, I want to call those to mind for all of us. People who are currently living on the streets, facing the challenge of homelessness, wondering where they might find a safe place to sleep tonight. And we created a video a short time ago at Daily Bread. Daily Bread is the homeless outreach center in Melbourne that began as a soup kitchen in 1988 and has now expanded into a full-service, person-centered, housing-focused homeless outreach center. And we took some time a couple of months ago to interview some of the people who participate in our program, some of our unsheltered neighbors. And I'd like to invite you all to hear from them so that as we go through our discussion tonight, we can be mindful of these folks that are heroically facing this challenge.
We were having difficulty with the audio as we were testing this program. And so, Jeff, you may want to just speak over this if you can.
Mm-hmm. So we have subtitles here for the audio challenges.
Up and downtown, and I would have parked that. I slept down the road, side by side. Be really about to be honest here. Be real. Be honest, baby. Look at it. Be real. That was it. That's not how they go. That's for them, man. I'm favorite. them, and they say I like.
In your life that led to a homeless situation?
I got sick. I had to get a spine surgery done. I was in the hospital for 6 months, and everything got out of control.
I guess the first thing is people stigmatize. They think if you're homeless, you're a drug addict, you're a drunk, you're a thief, and not everybody's like. For the most part, just like any other crowd, you get the good and the bad. I think that the majority of us are pretty good standing, mining people. Homeless people are people, like anybody.
It's difficult. It's not good. You got to speak 1 hour, but to make sure nobody don't bother you. Cut somebody's grass.
About 3 years now, but I definitely
I did go studying, try to get some study on the train and stuff of that kind. Trying to get joint custody of my dog.
that's scared and I'm in good faith.
Hopefully through those technological challenges, you were able to glean some of the resilience, some of the hope, some of the strength, and the people that we have the privilege of working with at Daily Bread and other organizations, helping people face the challenge of homelessness throughout our community. I know the privilege that I have of going to work at Daily Bread every day and sitting down with someone like Kevin, who's the gentleman that you saw at the beginning and the end, who is holding down a job right now, working at Taco Bell in the evenings. He's with us in the daytime. He's doing what he can to make a tough situation work out for him, and looking forward, hopefully, to a future with help from people like us. That privilege is something that we don't take for granted. And as we talk about various numbers and data points, I hope that maybe some of those folks that you saw in that initial video, you'll be able to keep in mind some of the names and faces, and those circumstances can bring the reality to what we're talking about, and maybe upset some of the stereotypes that people might have about folks facing a homeless situation. So I facetiously said Amber is an expert on homelessness. Those were the real experts. We saw them. But Amber has brought to our community, in her role as executive director of the Brevard Homeless Coalition, a professional strength and a sense of mission that is working to transform our community to better address the challenge of homelessness from a systems level. I have the privilege of working on the ground, working with people, rolling up our sleeves and trying to tackle individual situations of homelessness. That's one way to tackle it. But that's not going to work if we don't have other people working on a systems level, on a collaboration and a coordination level. And Amber has come to us and really transforming our Brevard Homeless Coalition. So at this point, I give the handoff to her to really share with us that higher level perspective that can really show what we're facing in terms of a challenge, but also in terms of resources to address it.
Thank you, Jeff. Our next speaker,
Sorry,
Amber.
real quick. Are we going to get slides for this, or can we go back?
I'm not sure what that means.
Oh, you mean
Are we gonna
like
get
emailed to you?
Well, I'm just wondering, I would like to go back to the causes of the increase slide. So I don't want to interrupt, but are we going to have access to that at some point?
We've got like 45 more minutes to talk and show slides and have conversations. So
that was a video.
That
was a video. That wasn't slides. That was a video. So I could rewind the video and show that screenshot. Let's move forward and we'll come back to it.
There we go. Amber has the floor.
Great. If we were in person, I would ask you for some crowd participation. So I'm going to ask you to take your mouse and hover it over the reactions button. And just quickly, by a show of hands, how many of you have heard of the Brevard Continuum of Care or the Brevard Homeless Coalition? If you have heard of either one of those names, those groups, go ahead and put the hand raise. It's good to know like who's in the room. Okay. All right. So we got a handful of you. Okay, cool. Well, it's always, you can lower your hands. It's always helpful to know kind of where we're at. So I've been with the Brevard Homeless Coalition since December 2020. And my primary focus, as Jeff mentioned, has been to kind of raise awareness and bring a system-wide organization and structure and vision to what we are called to do as a community. And so I'm going to share my screen with you and so there we go. So a little bit about the Brevard Continuum of Care. We are a HUD-approved regional local planning body that coordinates the services for individuals experiencing homelessness. So we are, number one, we're committed to working together for the cause to solve homelessness. Really, our mission statement is to ensure that the experience of homelessness in Brevard County is rare, brief, and non-reoccurring. And so in order to do that, we look at the different aspects of our crisis response system as a whole. We, as the Continuum of Care, we apply for state funding and federal funding. We develop an annual plan, a strategic plan, and we build capacity. So if you can imagine, the continuum of care, it's for Brevard County. Some continuum of cares they cover several counties. There are 27 identified continuum of cares in the state of Florida. So we are a HUD mandated group. And that continuum of care is a cross-sector body of people. So it's anybody can be a part of the continuum of care who says, hey, I have a heart, a mission, a vision to see homelessness solved in my community. And so our current membership body is over 200 people that represent different organizations and priorities. From that membership body, they identify a lead agency, and that lead agency is a 501c3 nonprofit entity that is charged with leading the way. And so I'm the executive director of that lead agency, and that lead agency is called the Brevard Homeless Coalition. We're a 501c3 nonprofit. So if you look at the way it's kind of structured, and this kind of is in the weeds a little bit, but I think it'll help you when we talk about system of care, and I can kind of show you where Jeff's work resides in that and how it all works together, because we know, like, alone we can do nothing, but together we can move mountains, right? So we said the membership body is the stakeholders up here. They elect from within the membership body members who make up our advisory council. And that advisory council are made up of leaders in the community and in their different sectors who are decision makers. So we have mayors, we have CEOs, we have heads of the Health Alliance, of the TPO, of all the different sectors that kind of need to come into play and work together so that we can address this big problem. And so the advisory council is about 26 people out of this entire organization, and they're spread out to represent different sectors. Then the lead agency, which is the Brevard Homeless Coalition, which I mentioned. Now, we apply for that federal funding and state funding, and we put it out into the community for different providers to apply for that funding in order to run different programs to address homelessness. And so you can see here are the programs that we work with and through in order to address this. So we have prevention, homeless prevention, people who are at imminent risk of losing their homes. We have those programs. Diversion, that's our number one goal, is to prevent people, to help them identify natural resources or other ways they might address their crisis so that they don't even have to enter the homeless system in the first place. Outreach, we have outreach specialists, we have outreach centers like Daily Bread and other places in the community who meet those daily needs. Emergency shelters, we have emergency shelter programs in our community, but Brevard County does not have a drop-in emergency shelter. So when people think, hey, let's just see someone on the street who's homeless, let's put them in an emergency shelter. We don't have a low barrier place where someone could go overnight and get into shelter. That does not exist in Brevard County. The only time that we see that exists is our new initiative, which are cold night shelters, which we have just, Jeff has been kind of spearheading with, along with some of my team members and Love Inc. to get some cold night shelters stood up throughout the community. And it's been incredible to watch that collaboration work. We'll talk about that later. Transitional housing, kind of a short-term housing plan to get people on their feet before they go into permanent housing. Rapid rehousing is our primary mode of taking people and getting them stable when they get into their homes. So getting them from the streets into a house with some kind of subsidy and wraparound support services. And then permanent supportive housing, those who are going to need to be housed with supportive services indefinitely. So Jeff is going to talk about that in a little bit. And then we partner with obviously the different areas: workforce, healthcare, veterans affairs, behavioral health, substance abuse, criminal justice, domestic violence, and the school districts. All of those stakeholders are essential for us to address this mission together. So we are one of many who are committed to this. So when we talk about the homelessness strategy in our community, we aren't by ourselves. We're in a very collaborative environment and very much on purpose trying to figure this out. So one of the things that HUD requires of continuum of cares is that we conduct the annual point in time count. So I'm going to ask for your participation again. If you want to hover your mouse over your little participation button, and can you please raise your hand and let me know if you have heard of the point in time count before? All right. Great. Okay. So lower your hands. Now, can you raise your hand if you've participated in a point in time count, whether it's here or in another community, maybe before, if you've participated? Great. Awesome. So the HUD requires all COCs to conduct the point in time count for any individual experiencing homelessness in our region. And we do it every year, the last 10 days in January. And what we do is we look for those who meet HUD's definition of homelessness, because there are different definitions of homelessness out there. For example, couch surfing is not a definition of homelessness. But so we look for those who are living in shelters and situations not meant for human habitation, and those who are unsheltered. And so we've coordinated the count. This year we have tons of community involvement. This was last year's information because we just wrapped up our point in time count last week. But you can see we have volunteers and organizations who support that. We go out to different camps throughout the community. We give incentives. We have different organizations who step up with donated items. Last year we had 10,000. We had about $15,000 that we raised this year for that. We pick a day and we canvass the community. And then for 6 days following that, we continue finding those who were experiencing homelessness on that night. So last year we did this work, and when we do the point in time count, it gives us a snapshot of the story of what's happening in our community. So this was our kind of our infographic that we put out last year after we compiled all the data. So we just got it in, we're working on it, we'll have it ready to go in April. But we use this data that we collect all year, and it's useful when we apply for grants, when we tell the story of where our greatest needs are in our community. It helps the provider agencies who are running those various programs. They can point to the data that we got from our community as backup and support for why their program is needed. And so it really is a really great community tool for us. So last year there was 1,052 individuals. It was the highest count since 2015 for Brevard County, and it was up 15% from the year before. The overall count, which we're talking about here, includes those who were in emergency shelter programs. So we're in, and then those who are also unsheltered. You can kind of see the trends that we put out from 2015 to 2023, and we can look into that more in detail later if you would like to. Just looking at the breakdown, you can see here that actually, if you would in the chat, I'm gonna pull that up because I think living in a car is considered homeless, by the way. Yes. Terry asked that question. When you look on the screen, you can go ahead and put it in the chat over here. When you look at this right here, what sticks out to you? Unaccompanied youth, family households, and adult-only households. What would you say? What does that data tell you? Go ahead and put it in the chat. Can we do that to everyone? Is everyone in a meeting? Yeah. Anyone? 768.
It's interesting. I'm not seeing that response in the chat.
Yeah, no, well, no one's
No one's responded yet.
We don't have the ability to
We
chat
can't,
that
we're not
over.
allowed to.
Oh,
People can unmute and share.
there you go. Just unmute and share. We don't need to chat. What does this tell you? Where's the greatest need?
Obviously, adults only, right?
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, we talk about families being unsheltered, and absolutely, that there should be no child without a home, but individuals as well. And so it's always interesting to kind of show that information at the significant need of individuals who are unsheltered. Unaccompanied youth, you can see here as well. What strikes you about this slide?
Men are more at need than women are. greater percentage in any case.
But not that much.
Yeah, look at this.
And female unsheltered homeless, a 43% increase is dramatic.
Yeah,
Question
tremendous increase.
The question you'd have to ask is why? What happened? What happened in 2023 that triggered a 43% increase? Do you know the answer?
Jeff, are you unpacking some of this later?
Yes.
Yeah.
Ah.
So I'm going to share the data, and then when Jeff gets up here, he's going to kind of dig in it a little bit more. But I think it's helpful for us to interact with the data because it is meant to be an interactive tool. We tried to make it fun and easy to read so that people could kind of grasp it. So when we talk about chronic homelessness, it showed that there was a decrease, but we will look at 218 individuals who were chronically homeless is a lot for a community to experience. You can see here an increase of those who were unsheltered, who had a serious mental illness and or substance use disorder, and a 55% increase. You can look at the racial and ethnic disparities in homelessness. See, there's a disproportionate amount of African American who are experiencing homelessness compared to our population. Our unsheltered veteran homelessness was 117% increase. There was so we were very active with the VA this year with our account. And then this past year, we looked at those students in transitions who were, living in all these different situations and living doubled up in like living with other living in other people's houses because they can't afford their own, doesn't meet HUD's definition. So we can't include it in our account, but we worked with the school district to find out what was their number. And they had on their rolls 894 students who were living doubled up. If you take 894 and you add it to our 1,052, you've got close to 2,000 people experiencing homelessness in Brevard County on that single night, which is staggering. When we look at the population density throughout the county, we did a heat map of where all of the surveys were conducted, and we're pretty much able to say that it was consistent with the population density of North, Central, and South Brevard. This year, we're going to break it up on the different entitlement districts. So we're going to look at Titusville, Cocoa, Melbourne, and Palm Bay, and be able to break it up in that way so we can have a better judge. But very interesting information. So we take all of that data and we bring it to that general membership meeting and of the whole continuum of care. And we say, what do we do with it? We needed to come up with a strategic plan that said, we need a plan of how we're going to address this. And what is that going to look like? And so we get together, the things we have to consider when we come up with our plan, and I'm not going to go through this because it's kind of crazy, but when we tell you that the homeless system is a very complicated system, it is a very complicated system. And we have to work with all of the different systems when they fail. If the school system fails, if foster care fails, if the prison system fails, if whatever else, people end up at healthcare system, people end up on the streets, we are given them as our mission to care for them. And so it takes a lot of coordination. So over the course of about a year, we worked together to develop our strategic plan for the next 3 years, but I imagine it's going to go longer. And that strategic plan is called Housed and Healthy Brevard. We believe that it is not just enough to get someone housed, but we want to see them housed and we want to see them healthy in their housing. We want to see them healthy physically, mentally, spiritually, relationally. And so the pieces of that strategic plan are that we want to strengthen the foundation of our COC. So speaking with community groups, getting people at the table who have this same heart and mission and vision, and that can work with us to find solutions. We also want to share our story through data. Data is a big part. We want to make it accessible. We want to make it tangible, that people can see it, can use it, can understand it. And we want to share the story and not forget those individuals that Jeff showed in the beginning, forget who they are and why we're doing what we're doing. And the three ways that we work to doing that is we want to reduce, just reduce the number of homelessness in Brevard for vulnerable populations. We want to prevent housing instability through education, healthcare, and case management. We want to prevent people from becoming homeless in the first place. And we want to build homes, because the solution to homelessness is housing, right? And we know, as the title of this is, that we have an unaffordable housing crisis here. Real quick, we want to reduce homelessness through our coordinated entry approach. So that's how do we coordinate all of those systems together, so it's very easy for someone to get access to the resources available. We want to reduce chronically homeless individuals and reduce the number of people experiencing homelessness due to fleeing domestic violence. You can see at the bottom, we have measurements that we are following and going to be reporting out as we go along. We want to prevent housing instability, grow partnerships, get more resources, case management. We want to support these agencies who are doing this boots on the ground work by identifying funding, capacity expansion for them, like to give Jeff and his team more funding for more case management, for housing, and that's part of our goal. Communicate clear pathways and identify funding is a big piece of what we do. And build, we want to develop an asset map of the homeless system of care for our whole community, which is a big undertaking. Creating a flow process, increasing the supply. And this is where we're going to I'm going to about to turn it over to Jeff, but we need to increase the supply of housing focused shelter beds, permanent housing, and rapid rehousing beds. And what that means is we don't just need affordable housing, which you're going to hear a lot about. We need housing with supportive services. Those individuals who've been chronically homeless, who need help, we need to find those units, that housing supply that can provide those wraparound services. And we are very focused on that mission, and obviously building multi-sector partnerships. And the ways that we're going to increase that housing supply is recruiting existing rental properties, so landlords who are out there who are willing to work with us and work with our clients and work with our case managers, new construction, and rehabbing existing buildings. These are ways that we do that. We want to increase our permanent housing. In the next 3 years, we want to add 837 beds to the system, and we would like to add shelter beds as well. So Housed and Healthy Brevard is our plan. It's our mission. It's where we're going. And it's partners like Jeff, who also serves on our advisory council, who are helping us take it there. And so with that, I will kind of turn it over to Jeff. Any more information you want, you can find us on our website, and we'll get with you, but we'll be obviously available for more questions. But Jeff.
Wonderful, Amber. So I don't know if you've ever been involved in a strategic planning process. I've been involved in a few, and sometimes they can feel energizing, and sometimes they can feel more like an exercise in futility. I have to say that the work that the Brevard Homeless Coalition is doing has this wonderful combination of connection to the reality of homelessness with the realistic aspirations to make a difference that allows for a strategic plan that can be effective and inspiring. So the slides that you just saw that Amber shared, the numbers and the strategy for how to address this challenge, I think it comes with that combination: realistic and hopeful, facing the challenge head on, but with a sense of what we can accomplish when we come together. I want to highlight a few things that are maybe especially important to us at Daily Bread. So we're a homeless outreach center working with people that are facing the challenge of unsheltered homelessness. And Amber pointed out, and it's clear that unsheltered homelessness is a particular challenge in our community. So when you say that somebody's unsheltered, that's somebody who's living on the streets or in the woods. They're sleeping in a tent tonight, or their pillow is the sidewalk. You know, this is the stark situation of somebody facing homelessness, different from that person who is maybe in a shelter. Maybe they're transitioning out of homelessness. This is the person who is desperate tonight for a roof over their head. So the overall numbers of homeless are going up, and the unsheltered number. I want to point out a few demographics that I think are really important for us to be aware of. One is the racial demographic, the gender demographic, and the age demographic. So please, it was pointed out by Amber, but I want to highlight it again. So the African American population in our community overall in Brevard is about 10%. In the homeless population, it's over 25%. That's a significant overrepresentation in the homeless population. That's something that we're very aware of at Daily Bread. It is something we bring in that awareness to our programming, our targeting of interventions. It affects how we do our outreach, how we measure our success in outreach, addressing concerns like systemic racism in affinity, and being careful to chart our numbers of success to see where the racial demographics might be playing out. So this is significant for our community in Brevard, that we note and monitor and work together to address the overrepresentation of the African American population in our homeless population. You all saw the significance of the increase in women facing the challenge of unsheltered homelessness. A 43% increase year to year is very significant. You know, what is the cause? Phil, you asked, you know, what's the cause? I think we can speculate together. Honestly, for me and for us at Daily Bread, we're more focused on, you know, how can we realistically address this challenge? Somebody who is unsheltered, homeless, living on the streets or in the woods is extremely vulnerable. They're vulnerable to violence. They're vulnerable to the stress of homelessness, the trauma of not knowing where I'm going to get my next meal or where I'm going to sleep tonight. That is amplified to the nth degree for a woman experiencing homelessness on the street. So this crisis of unsheltered homelessness, I think we need to acknowledge is magnified for women experiencing unsheltered homelessness. And the age, I don't have a good slide about the age discrepancy in the homeless population. This might seem confusing to say, but it's almost as if the unsheltered homeless population that we're charting at Daily Bread is getting both older and younger. So we're seeing more older people, seniors in our community that maybe were on a fixed income, that were paying their rent year after year for many years, but their rent increased and their income did not, and they lost their apartment. We're seeing those seniors on the street and coming to Daily Bread. And we're also seeing more young people who perhaps could be aging out of foster care, young people who did not fit into the educational system or the get into a good cycle of employment, maybe facing the challenge of addiction. So we're seeing more younger people in their 20s and 30s and more older people in their 60s and 70s. That kind of stereotypical image of the homeless man who is in his 40s or 50s that is kind of settling into a homeless lifestyle. That's a stereotype that doesn't fit with the realities of the population we're seeing now. Our population is younger than that, older than that, more female than that, more African American than that. And so to bring all of that understanding, I think can be very helpful. This slide here can be helpful to show where our focus might be in addressing the more acute situation of homelessness. Amber talked about the important work of prevention, homelessness prevention, helping somebody who might be in danger of becoming homeless to not fall into that. But this is a helpful chart for us at Daily Bread, and good to know that most people who experience homelessness resolve their homeless situation in less than 2 weeks. Most people who come to Daily Bread come once. They come to Daily Bread for one meal, for one service, and then they make their way out of homelessness. The next largest proportion of people facing the challenge of homelessness resolve in a few months. That's about 40%. So 90% of people experiencing homelessness will resolve that situation within a few weeks or a few months. It's important for us at Daily Bread and important for us as a community to focus our resources, our greatest efforts in addressing homelessness on people that you might say are stuck in a homeless situation. The phrase chronic homelessness is sometimes used. That can be helpful. I think maybe a more helpful and clearer way of describing it is just long-term homelessness. Chronic homelessness has a kind of technical sense in housing and urban development, which means somebody who's been homeless for over a year or multiple times in the last 3 years. That together adds up to 12 months. And they have some kind of a disability where they aren't able to improve their income through employment or other means that would allow them to afford market rate rent. So these folks who are chronically homeless or long-term homeless, who make up about 10% of the population who enters into a homeless situation, we are dedicating our resources at Daily Bread to focus on these folks, and it's incumbent upon us as a community and as a system of care to say, let's focus our resources here. And this 10% who are mostly adult-only households, but who are facing complex issues that may have led to them being stuck, you might say, in a homeless situation. And these statistics here might show various of the issues that people are facing. Various mental health issues, substance abuse issues. I think as we look at these, it's good for us to be mindful that some of these issues may have led to a homeless situation. Some of these issues are exacerbated by a homeless situation. Facing the stress and challenge of homelessness can lead somebody who maybe was a casual drinker or drug user to enter into a more abusive relationship with that substance. One thing I realized when I came to Daily Bread, you see that last statistic about personality disorder, 79%. I realized that, I've been at Daily Bread for about 6 years now. and had worked in homeless services for a few years before that. And really, you read any article in the newspaper about homelessness, you know that mental health is part of the challenge. But what I realized at Daily Bread as I got to know people facing this challenge of homelessness was that it's not just the diagnosable mental illness, but the isolation, the alienation that can come from unsheltered homelessness can lead anyone to what you might call unhealthy patterns of thinking. And so that there can be a kind of pervasive mental health issue throughout the homeless population. There's been a greater awareness and emphasis throughout our society about the effects of trauma in people and post-traumatic stress disorder. The trauma that can lead to homelessness and the trauma of unsheltered homelessness is something that has come to the forefront of our work at Daily Bread. So consider the fact that about 30% of soldiers who were on active duty in Iraq and Afghanistan acquired PTSD. But chronically homeless individuals, people that have been homeless for over a year, unsheltered on the streets, around 100% have PTSD. And then of that 100% of people who are unsheltered homeless facing the challenges of overcoming the trauma in their background, about 60% have what you would call complex PTSD. That's a kind of PTSD that is more crippling for somebody who's seeking to move forward in their life and overcome their homeless situation. The best way I can describe that feeling of unsheltered homelessness is if you were to think about that the last time you were awakened at 3 o'clock in the morning. Maybe there was a knock at the door, maybe your cell phone rang, maybe a branch hit your window of your bedroom, and you woke up hyper alert at 3 o'clock in the morning. And maybe your wife or your husband elbows you in bed and says, "Honey, go see what that is." You are going to be wide awake, hyper alert. The best way to describe the continual hyper stress, the trauma of homelessness, is that it's always 3 a.m. You can never really catch your breath. You can never go to your home. You can never go to your room. You can never take that calming sigh and relax. It's always 3 a.m. You're always hyper vigilant. You saw Mary in the video. She said you have to sleep with one eye open. That sense of never relaxing, the wearying sense of that can only be addressed by getting a roof over your head. So the last section of our presentation before we get into questions is really looking together at the solution to the problem of homelessness, and the solution is very clear, and that's housing. I'm very grateful for the invitation to participate in this discussion tonight, because there are different populations of homelessness. So unsheltered people are the largest growing population of people facing the challenge of homelessness, but there are other populations like families with much smaller percentage, and we have other organizations addressing that challenge. And then veteran homelessness. There are a lot of resources in our community to address veteran homelessness. One of the first things we do at Daily Bread when we're assessing somebody or having that conversation in intake is, did you serve in the U.S. Armed Forces? And if they did, wonderful. Let's connect you to Darla from the VA, who comes to Daily Bread every Friday. We want you to have a conversation with her to connect you to the resources that are there. As our country says, if you served in the armed forces, we want to make sure you're not on the streets. So those resources are there for a veteran. But the person who is unsheltered, who is homeless, that's the population that we as a community need to focus on to provide housing solutions. And that's something that we've done at Daily Bread. So in 2019, we transformed Daily Bread from being merely an outreach center with a soup kitchen that was there to help people survive on the streets, to help people get off the streets with housing. We got more involved in the Brevard Homeless Coalition. We provided access to some funding resources for case management. You see this wonderful woman, Tasha Walker, in this picture, who was one of our case managers at that time, and she helped Bruce there get a place to stay. You take a look at this chart. So in 2019, we helped 100 people find housing. Now, these were part of that 10%. These are part of these folks that are challenging to work with, people that have been homeless for a long time with complex needs. These are folks that we needed to roll up our sleeves and say, how can we help you overcome your homeless situation? Let's work together and help you get inside. And once you're inside, once we help you get an apartment, we're going to work with you to address whatever other needs you have. Maybe there's mental health challenges or addiction recovery issues. Maybe you need to improve your employment or find income through Social Security. How can we work with you that you can be successful in their housing? In 2019, we helped 100 people in that process. In 2020, we helped 127. In 2021, we helped 160. In 2022, we helped about 40. What happened? The housing crunch. So we were progressing along nicely with some housing availability, with some resources through the Brevard Housing Authority that provided some vouchers, some rental subsidies. We had great case managers like Tasha, and then all of a sudden the housing market tightened and we lost that resource. So you need three things to house somebody who's facing the most dire challenge of homelessness. You need good case management, that support that's going to be there. You need a housing subsidy if somebody doesn't have enough income to reach the market rent. But you also need a place. You need an available apartment. You need a landlord you can work with. And it's that third thing. We have the first two right now. Is that third thing that our community doesn't have. So we've worked at Daily Bread with the city of Melbourne. I tell you, it was a journey in the last year. It was a roller coaster working with the city to see what we might be able to accomplish together to address that third need. We need more housing, not just affordable housing, but affordable housing that is earmarked for people coming out of homelessness. And not just homelessness, for people that are coming out of unsheltered homelessness with those chronic needs. And I think our conversation would have been different a year ago. It would have been much more aspirational and merely hopeful. But now I can come to you and say, the city of Melbourne, working with a partner at Daily Bread, with the support of the Brevard Homeless Coalition, has said, we want to make a dramatic transformation and open up a possibility that can really move the needle on unsheltered homelessness in our community. And it's a place that we're calling Providence Place. It is a 120 unit housing development for people that are coming out of unsheltered homelessness. We're gonna work with folks in outreach to assess people for those to assess who would really need this resource. We will bring them in, provide them a housing situation, and then work with them to address the other complex needs that led to that chronic homeless situation. It's a beautiful partnership with the city of Melbourne. They've donated 3 acres of land and $3 million towards this project. The Brevard Health Alliance is also an important partner in this project. They will be providing a full service clinic. Now, full service will mean medical care, behavioral health care, psychiatric care, and pharmaceutical care. We'll have our own pharmacy, as well as medically assisted recovery care for addiction recovery. So this medical facility will be in-house for our residents, which will allow us to work to address the complex needs and provide wraparound services so that somebody might be successful in this housing situation. Now, we're not naive that everybody, you just move into a place and they're going to be successful. We know it takes a lot of hard work to make that work. We do celebrate when somebody moves in, but I'll tell you, we celebrate even more when we get to that renewal of the first year renewal of the lease and know that they made it a year and they're going to keep going. And we don't expect 100% success. Our goal, our target is 80% success. And we're right about there with the people that we've been housing over these last few years. Some people might fall back into a homeless situation, but we'll continue to work with them, recognizing that housing is the solution to homelessness. So Providence Place is a 120 unit development for people coming out of unsheltered homelessness, coming off the streets, coming out of the woods to live here, that we might form a community together, overcoming that trauma of homelessness, overcoming whatever whatever complex needs led them to homelessness, and finding success in housing. It's really providing the solution. So it's really a dream come true for us at Daily Bread, who have been working with people experiencing homelessness for over 30 years, that now we can really get to that point of addressing the root solution of housing for homelessness. And so meanwhile, we will be providing outreach throughout the community with more mobile and flexible outreach to reach people experiencing homelessness wherever they are throughout our community, doing an important work of assessment of a connection to resources with that housing focus, and providing for people's basic needs to survive the life of homelessness on the streets. So this is an exciting moment for our community. Now, I don't want to pretend that this is a magic wand that's going to solve homelessness in Melbourne, but it's going to move the needle. In Melbourne right now, there are probably about 250 or 300 people sleeping outside every night. Amber talked about the point in time count. It's something that we take very seriously at Daily Bread, and we've been doing surveys in these last days with that important sense of making sure nobody falls through the gaps. When you're homeless, you can feel forgotten or dismissed, and the point in time count allows us to take that time to make sure every person is counted. So if about 250 or 300 people are homeless, living on the streets tonight in Melbourne, when Providence Place opens in a couple of years, that's going to be 200 of those people living there. It's going to significantly move the needle on unsheltered homelessness in our community. It's not going to be a magic wand solving the problem. We're going to still need to do more, but I'm proud of our community. I don't know what your Google news alerts bring to your desktop every day, but for some reason, my Google News always shares with me whenever there's a community in our country that tries to build something to address homelessness, and it is often denied. It goes before a city council or a county commission. It goes before some governmental body, some citizens group protests, and they say no. Well, that almost happened here. There was a last,
Jeffrey, one more minute.
all right, there was a last ditch effort to put a dog park here in the site. But our community said, no, we want to address the challenge of homelessness with housing. And so it's a hopeful time for us. I hope we've given you a sense of the problem and the challenge and an indication of some hope for solutions for the future.
Well, Jeff, thank you very, very much. Jeff and Amber, this, and by the way, I don't know if you can turn off your screen sharing so we can get you back to full screen. Oh, there's the proposed site. Great to have you back to full screen. This is an audience, a very, very sympathetic audience. We, over the years, have worked with different people. I personally have been to Brevard Homeless Coalition meetings. I know we were able to bring a group of activists several years ago to one of our commissioner's offices so that we could talk about what could be done. That commissioner no longer is on the board, but this can be exceedingly frustrating. It has been maddeningly frustrating for many people like yourself who really care and really work day and night. When the rest of us can turn it off and go home, there are a lot of people that worry about this, that work on this. I know that you and Amber and Keith isn't here, but I know Keith is one of those people too, who really, really, really cares and is really trying to make a difference. Struggles. It's like one step forward, two steps back sometimes. So all of us want to say thank you to you. We would all be, if you were in a live meeting right now, we would all be standing up and giving you a round of applause and saying thank you for all you do. This is at the gut level. These are our neighbors. These are friends. These are people that we might have just spoken to at a local fast food restaurant, took our order, and when their shift is done, they've got no place to go. The guy that mows our lawn, the kind of these are people who we know and who may secretly and they don't want to talk about it necessarily. They secretly go off. My wife was a teacher for decades and saw the kids, worked with the kids who needed help. And of course, we feed a lot of kids at the schools because they have no place to go. Their parents can't take care of them, and the school is the only safe haven they have. It's maddening. The question, I guess, that I would ask right off the bat is, our audience would probably like to know, what can they do? What can we as individuals do? We're gonna open the floor to everyone to ask questions. I'm just taking the first question myself, and I would ask that you two please give us an action item or two or three maybe, and just right off the top of my head. What can people in our audience, people that are here listening to this, people that are watching this on a future viewing on YouTube, what can we do as individuals to help you? And Jeff, you can take it first if you'd like, and Amber, you can take it next.
Okay.
All right, sounds good. I'll take it first, and I would suggest three things. So first of all, each of you have a network of people you talk with, people who might share opinions about homelessness, and it's important to dispel the stereotypes. There's a strange fear that's cropped up. People weren't as afraid of homelessness 5 years ago as they seem to be now. I don't know why there's such a fear when people see somebody who's homeless. We haven't had crime, we haven't had violence, we haven't had the danger of people experiencing homelessness. There's a kind of irrational fear. To me, it's almost a fear of poverty, that people are in a comfortable economic situation and they see somebody who's homeless, and it strikes up a fear. The more you can dispel that, the more you can, with your own social network, talk about the humanity of people experiencing homelessness, people who are just like you and me that are facing a housing crisis. That would be the first thing I would suggest. Sometimes people ask me what to do about somebody who is panhandling, and I like to speak to that, to just kind of bring it out into the open as an issue. Somebody who is panhandling is likely not homeless. They might be, but most people who panhandle aren't homeless, and most people who are homeless don't panhandle. So there's not really a lot of overlap there. But that can be a moment where you can, again, treat somebody with the humanity that they have. And I just heard a wonderful way that a woman I know deals with people who panhandle. She has her wallet in her car, and whenever she sees somebody who's panhandling, she takes a bill from her wallet and puts it in an envelope. And once it reaches a certain amount, she donates it to an organization that's working to address homelessness. So she doesn't want to ignore the need of that person who's presenting a need at the street corner. But she also realizes that giving that person $10, if perhaps they're facing the challenge of addiction or some other concern, might not be the best way to help them. So to be very intentional and humane in working with people that might be approaching you in a kind of panhandling situation would be my second thing. And then the third thing is, you folks are politically active. You wouldn't be on this call if you're not. There will be times when you will need to go to city council, when you will need to go to county commission and stand up to speak for progressive action to address these concerns. I've been in a lot of those meetings. And I know that, I think of a meeting I was at recently where I had a deep sense that council was undecided about what they would do. And they were listening to the input of people coming forward. And if there was a lot of pressure one way, there needed to be pressure the other way as well. And a reasoned, caring, community-minded presentation that was solution oriented made a big difference. So your voice in that setting can really be powerful. So those are three things that I would suggest as points of action.
And Amber, what would you suggest? Just in general, what can people that are watching this, listening to this, what can we do on a daily basis? What kind of action item would you like to see?
I think Jeff pretty much covered it. Thank you, Jeff, for those three suggestions. I always say use your voice and say yes. So when an affordable housing developer is coming in your neighborhood, just say yes, because it's not enough. No matter what happens right now, it's not enough. And use your yes with your friends, and don't be afraid. And I think that's the fear and the influence piece that we, those people are, literally like our teachers who can't afford to buy, you can't have a single teacher making what we pay in Brevard County afford rent if she had a couple kids and alone. So those people need affordable housing everywhere in our community. So just use your yes and your influence with your friends and show up. And, support.
Excellent ideas. Excellent. Thank you very much for those thoughts. Our first hand raised is from Gabriel Rothblatt. Gabe is a local hero, a former congressional candidate. Gabriel, it's great to see you here. You have the floor. And Gabriel should be able to unmute.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yes, thank you, Phil. I appreciate that, and thank you very much, Jeffrey, and for for your work and for this presentation. Um, when I was in college in the University of Vermont, I worked for the Committee on Temporary Shelter. There, you're probably familiar with the programs that they do there. Those were, just wonderful community solutions to the problems that they were facing. So I often enjoy kind of playing a little bit of like a devil's advocate, thinking outside the box. So I would like to just tease a little bit that part of this problem is our need for them to conform to our comforts and standards. And so the reality is that, most of our evolutionary history, we've not been, domesticated within the walls of domiciles. And that the true answer is not that everybody needs a home, but that we need to define space for those who feel most comfortable, in different environments, in different social organizations than the patriarchal structures that we're used to. And so I believe that is a big part of the problem that we're confronting, is that we have actually completely removed every non-architectural way of living in this world, and that there is a space for those who are not tied to the debt structures and property ownership, and that's okay. And that we need to create space for different ways of being and living, whether that is intentional communities, whether that is open space for people to experience and thrive and be able to live in different ways of being than the ones that we are right now.
And Gabriel, I know hiding in there somewhere is a question. The question for our speakers.
My question is, to all of us, it's a thought point. I know from my own experience that I'm not expecting, it's a rhetorical question, right? But part of our problem is forcing everybody to be attached to property, and that is actually not the solution. And I just like to hear, some response.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jeff. I'm not sure who would like to take it. Jeff, you got it.
I would. Gabriel, I love that point you're making. I think it's a really important one, and it's affecting how we're doing what we're doing. So as we build Providence Place, we know it's going to be a solution for us, a certain segment of the homeless population, but not for everybody. And it helps me to I've been frustrated with a cookie cutter solution to homelessness, which is something called rapid rehousing, which looks to help somebody out of their homeless situation, put them in an apartment somewhere. Like, so we're working with maybe single individuals. We put them in an apartment somewhere, and they're lonely, they're isolated. Maybe they had a community in the homeless population, and now they've been drawn out of that community and they're isolated in an apartment. I remember talking to a woman named Lisa, who was recently housed in her own apartment and was coming back to Daily Bread for lunch every day. And I said, Lisa, why are you here? I asked her in a way that wasn't meant to be insulting, but just inviting. And she said, I don't want to sit in my apartment by myself. As we construct Providence Place, it's with the sense of building a community. I don't think the answer to homelessness is for everybody to have a suburban home. I mean, I live in a home. I'm happy to have a home for my family, but I don't have great community with my neighbors. Some of them I don't even know their names. This is not ideal. This is not the kind of human flourishing that, Gabriel, I think you're pointing us to. We need to be creative. We need to look at multiple solutions. We need to find what's real and human and community building. And it's going to be different for various people.
And I see, by the way, I don't know if you noticed it, but Gabriel was holding up to the camera a cover of a Mother Jones magazine that it says "Yes in Our Backyards."
I love that. I was thinking of that with Amber, and we had somebody go before city council and say that at one point. You talk about going against NIMBYism, you know, to say yes in my backyard. That's a powerful message, and every single person here can say that when they have that opportunity to go before a council or a commission. Yes, yes, in my backyard.
I'm sure that most people here understand what that means, but NIMBY is not in my backyard. So people that don't want to have a power plant or a garbage dump or homeless facility in their backyard, they'll might support it superficially, but then they say, well, not in my backyard. And I don't know if Amber, you want to pick up on that as well.
Well, I just think it's hard, like Jeff said, it's hard to compete in suburbia with some of these communities. You know, we do that outreach to the camps during the point in time count. And there are some incredible setups, like people who want to live outdoors and they're like, you know, MacGyver and how they can create like fences and doorbells and ring cameras. And they've got this like, and it's community and they've got a mother of the group. And I mean, that is like such a sense of security. And then you move into these like, yeah, an apartment alone, isolated, like we can't, like it's, you know, we talk about why some people want to remain homeless. I don't know if people want to be homeless. I think they want community. And I think that's definitely something that is missing.
Yeah, I'd like to, I think that's a good point, Amber. And I want to share about a woman I know named Lisa, who had one of the most beautiful homeless camps I've ever seen, with these great gardens in this camp, and she was growing her own food. She had a nice camp. She knew her neighbors well. She was kind of that mother of the area, and it helps to look at Lisa to address that question of, don't some people just want to be homeless? That was true for her for a while, and then she got older. Then she had some health needs, and that wasn't going to work for her. And so we helped her to find a place, and she moved into a place a few weeks ago, and she's doing well in an apartment and still connected with us in community. So that's something that we always respect in our outreach efforts, where we respect that person's choice. Do they want to remain in their current circumstance? Do they want to take advantage of this housing opportunity? We respect their no. I don't presume to know what's best for that person. But one thing we've noticed is that answer can change over time. It can change by a change in somebody's life situation, getting older, facing health issues. It can also change based on seeing other friends who are homeless achieve a housing situation and find success in that. Sometimes people who are homeless, if you didn't know them and you went and asked them, or maybe a reporter went and talked to them and said, how do you feel about being homeless? They might have a sense of pride and kind of claiming their status as homeless. But over time, maybe an outreach worker would build a rapport with them and a sense of trust with them. Maybe they were afraid of getting their hopes up. Maybe their hopes had been dashed so often, but that repeated engagement and building rapport could lead to an openness to consider a possibility. So the important thing is to respect where a person's coming from, respect their decision, but keep engagement, keep asking, keep offering opportunities, and see what happens over time.
And Jeff and Amber, quick question, and that is an action item that just in my mind would be many people respect your organizations, and as I do, and they might want to contribute to your organizations. What would be the best way for people who want to send either? It seems to me there are a couple different ways of doing this. Either give your time, your own personal sweat equity, some money sent to the organization, or if you have a will, which hopefully people do, especially if you have some money, or maybe one of the things that's important is you don't necessarily have to be old to have a will, but if you're smart enough to have a will, no matter what your circumstance, to maybe put Daily Bread or Providence Place or Brevard Homeless Coalition or Steady Town in your will. How do people learn how to do that? Do you have websites that you'd like to direct people to? Can you help us by putting that in the chat? I know some people have been having trouble entering things into the chat, but you can always read the chat. So if you could do that, or we can put it on our SCPA website as well to refer people to you to help you in any way they can. How would you like us to do that?
Yeah, so I'm putting a couple of websites in, dailybreadinc.org and providence.place, which is our website for Providence Place. You can find ways of getting more involved there. I tell you what, I am overwhelmed by the support we have in our community for Daily Bread. We saw that outpouring, especially in COVID days, when people were receiving the checks from the government that maybe they didn't need. They were forwarding them to us. People had a sense of wanting to help the most vulnerable in that challenging time, and they knew they could trust Daily Bread to be working with people facing the challenge of homelessness. So we've had tremendous support in the community with donors, but also with volunteers, and that need for volunteers is going to continue in our transformation to being housing focused and distributive in our outreach. So please reach out with our websites and find those opportunities to connect with us.
Thanks, Jeff. I see the Amber has already put in the Brevard Homeless Coalition.org. Amber, you have it.
Yeah, but before I say, there's a couple hands that are raised. I don't know if you're able to see that, Phil.
Yep, they're coming up next.
Shannon's here. Okay. Yeah, so we are primarily a pass-through organization. So when we receive funding, we look for ways to support those agencies who are doing direct work. So a lot of times when we get direct donations, we use it to support that point in time count. So that just passed, but we like to give 10 ride bus passes out, $5 gift cards when we do the survey with individuals with incentives. So we always collect money for that around the point in time count. But aside from donating some land would be great. If you had a house you wanted to donate, or you somehow were a developer, wanted to build something for us, just give me a call. Give you my personal cell, my home number, have you over for dinner, whatever.
And that you pointed out the fact we do have several people that have been waiting with their hands up. Karen Houston, you have the floor.
Thank you, Phil. I mean, obviously this is important to me because I saw Amber at the Brevard delegation legislation, and I approached her about doing this back then. And it's because I see it on a daily basis. My job, which I'm retiring from soon, but my job is on Lake Drive in Cocoa. And I see people all the time. We had a resident homeless lady that was there. I've had people sleeping on the sidewalk. And probably because it's a close proximity to the bus hub. And so that, right on, I can't think of the street right now, but it's not far from where my job is. And so, sometimes I talk to people, of course, we've all, well, most of us, I would say, have done things to help, but I would love to have been a part of the point in time count, but physically, I'm not able to do that right now. But what can a person who's not physically able do to help out in some kind of capacity? I know that sometimes you in Daily Bread, you all have people that sponsor breakfasts and different types of meals and sort of stuff like that. And even at the point in time, if I could have driven you around, I would have been glad to do that. But I mean, what can somebody like myself do to help out the homeless situation that's here? It's rampant. And on Lake Drive, there's been a huge population in the past that's been run out. I see people all the time. I see it on 520. I know you guys probably went there too. And I also know that there's children that's there with needs that are beyond what we can even imagine. So,
Mhm,
of course, you see it all the time. So, what can a person like myself
mhm,
do
mhm,
to contribute?
mhm,
Well,
mhm.
the good news with our organization is we're a membership body. So all of our active agencies are listed on our website. So if you're ever like, oh, I wonder who's actually participating in this discussion, there's always a list on there that you could look at if there was anyone you wanted to learn more about. We can always connect you to volunteer opportunities amongst our partners. So places like Daily Bread, Matthew's Hope, Family Promise. We have the cold night shelters, which have been popping up. Great opportunity for community involvement to help, because the idea is if it gets below 45 degrees, we activate those. So getting connected for that would be a huge immediate assist.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Well, thank you very much. That, in the past, we actually encouraged people to, get involved any way they could. The Sharing Center, I know, is one that during the Obama campaign, they encouraged us actually to go over and volunteer at the Sharing Center. It's a very eye-opening and a wonderful organization to support. But there are many others that are just like it. So there's a lot to be done on the local level, and you don't have to dedicate your every day of your life to do it. You can do it once a month if you want, but doing a little something is very, very, very helpful. Terry LaPlante had your hand up. Terry, you have the floor.
Thank you, Phil, and thank
You're
you,
welcome.
Amber and Jeff. Great presentations. I have a few questions. So, I'm just curious how many people of the homeless have sought help through your organizations, and how many of them out there, are just homeless, but they don't even know enough to seek out help. Any idea?
Mhm, mhm.
And the reason I ask is I have an Airbnb, and I've had several homeless people check in for a night here and there. And, obviously they can't, well, the place is pretty much booked. So it's very rare that there's a night that they could book. But I just, I don't know what to say. Like, have you gotten professional help? Have you talked to so-and-so? Have you talked to so-and-so? I don't know who to refer them to
Mhm.
that.
Yeah,
So I'm
that's
wondering what the probabilities are that I'm kind of assuming that they have already exhausted all the public resources and that there's just not enough resources to go around. And I'm wondering if that's a fair assumption. I'm wondering if we have a lot of homeless people who just don't know what to do except be homeless.
So yes and no. I think you're asking the exact right question. What might you say to that person that you find out is homeless? Maybe they've stayed at your Airbnb and you realize that they don't have another location to go to when they have to move out. Maybe they're heading to the street for a while. Don't assume that they're connected. A big part of being homeless can be being disconnected. You're out of the regular in a mode of social interaction, and you can become isolated. So encouraging connection is important. That's one of the things that we emphasize at Daily Bread is regular connection. Don't let yourself become isolated. Sometimes there's shame involved with that. Sometimes there's other reasons why somebody might be isolated. Encourage that connection. You can encourage them to call 211. That might connect them to specific resources. That's our great information network in our county. If they're in the Melbourne area, they should go to Daily Bread. If they're in Cocoa, they should go to Matthew's Hope, and there's Titusville. There's other resources. But I don't want to give the impression that when somebody gets to a connection that there's easy or quick remedies to a homeless situation. We do not have the resources in our community that can address a homeless situation immediately. Amber mentioned that we don't have a immediately, where am I go tonight? Shelter in our community. We have some shelters for certain demographics, but we don't have that shelter that's ready for anybody. So you might have to understand or help somebody understand that they're going to be on the street tonight. There are resources, they should be connected, but it might take time and persistence to find that solution to their homeless situation.
Okay, thank you. And question, who, I'm thrilled, admire the work Daily Bread has done. So grateful that you're there. But my alarms have been going off since your new location and your new service thing has been approved, because it's like, who's going to feed the homeless? Where are they going to go to for a meal?
Mm-hmm. It's an important question. And the answer is, we're going to feed them. And we're going to find creative ways to make sure that nobody who's homeless in Melbourne is going to be without what they need, which is food, hygiene needs, but most importantly, access to housing. And we're not going to have a soup kitchen anymore. But it's been interesting to see how that need for a soup kitchen has evolved over these last years. So before COVID, about 250, 275 people were coming to Daily Bread every day for lunch. During COVID, we never closed for a day. We were able to maintain our operation. We had to modify it following CDC guidelines. And our numbers went down to about 100, 125. Now we're averaging about 150 people coming for lunch every day. So our numbers coming to our daily lunchtime meal dropped by half. What caused that? I think a few things went into that. One was our focus on housing, that we worked to get people off the streets, and we housed hundreds of people in those 3 years of 19, 20, and 21. So those people were living in an apartment and weren't coming for lunch at Daily Bread anymore. Also, that housing focus meant that people that were more casually connected to Daily Bread, that were more in need of a community meal, weren't participating in our lunch service. So what we've realized is that the need in our community is not for a soup kitchen. The need is for housing. And we can work through our food distribution network, which will continue. We distribute about 1.5 million pounds of food every year to about 28 food banks in our community. That's going to continue and be enhanced. We envision a Daily Bread food truck that's going to be part of our outreach team, that's going to go to various locations as supplemental. But our primary focus on our outreach is going to be to address housing. If you can't provide housing to people that are coming off the streets, then it makes sense to have a soup kitchen. But what Daily Bread is technically zoned at right now is a day shelter. And I'll be honest with you, offering a day shelter is a very frustrating enterprise, because people do not need shelter during the day. They need a place overnight. And Daily Bread has done a wonderful thing over these last decade, but the reality is we can do better. And it took a lot of doing to get here, but we're here now. And now that we can do better for people that are homeless, we can shift how we're going to do this outreach. We're going to ensure that nobody facing homelessness in our community is going to face that alone. We're going to walk with them through that. We're going to know who they are. We're going to make sure we're meeting their needs, but we're going to do it not on one side on Fee Avenue. We're going to go to where they are, and we're going to be connecting them in that way, connecting them first and foremost to housing. Mm-hmm.
If I
Yes,
can
Amber?
also, part of the part of the beauty of being a part of the continuum of care is that it's not up to Jeff and Daily Bread alone, that they are part of a network of agencies and a system that will work together to share that responsibility, that these are Brevard County residents, not just Daily Bread's clients. And so, you know, while we move toward that Providence Place and closing that operations of the soup kitchen, we are actively pursuing funding to support the outreach, mobile outreach van, actively pursuing funding to you know, support outreach teams to go out. So it's a community shared responsibility.
Also, I noticed here in our chat that Darlene was recommending that people in the Cocoa area go to the sharing center for food if they have needs for that. Sharing center is well known in Cocoa. It's very interesting to look at your hot map and looking at, you know, where people were located in the last point in time count, and to see those large clusters in Melbourne and then Cocoa. Our county is 72 miles long, and so there are people in need across that entire 72 miles. The Daily Bread obviously is limited, but I mean, doggone it, the Brevard Homeless Coalition has influence everywhere. Our Raed Al-Shaibi had his hand up, and Raed, if you would like it, you have the floor.
Thank you, Phil.
You're welcome.
This is another great program by Space Coast Progressive Alliance, and it's great to see these great speakers. You know, Jeff and Amber. You brought in a lot of great woos, and you know, there's always issues to deal with in Brevard County. I want to clarify some of the slides that you had, and I'm just want to make, before I ask my questions. In one of the slides you had the demographics that you had almost 500,000 people between 22 and 23 that are homeless, about 460,000 in whites and about 56 in black. So that's 500,000 homeless. And I just want to clarify that number. And then the main part of it is the one who are chronic, about 10%. So that's about 50,000 homeless in Brevard County. So can you clarify that point, and then I'll ask my question.
I think I was mistaken in how I presented that slide. It was speaking to the percentages of people who are homeless, that 50% resolve in a day, 40% resolve over or day or weeks over months, and then 10% over a year. But that doesn't reflect numbers of thousands in Brevard.
Okay, so
just percentages.
So how many homeless we have in Brevard County right now? Let's say today.
So the count last year was about 1,200.
1,200. Okay, so because I was involved in transitioning a family, and the issue was how long they can stay in that transition home that they had. It was on US 1, and it was a pressure on moving them out at certain time. What's the average length that they can stay in a transitioning home?
So it's a good question that reflects the different housing interventions that are offered for somebody overcoming their homeless situations. There was a traditional notion of something called transitional housing, which people were signing a year lease and then could renew for another year. So people would be in a transitional housing for 2 years. That model is no longer one that we advance in our community. It's not part of Providence Place in our plans for the future. We will have year-to-year leases for most people. That would be something called permanent supportive housing. That's for somebody who is maybe older or with a disability that wouldn't be able to increase their income. They will need that resource year after year. They will have a lease and the usual expectations of a lease, but without that undue expectation that somehow they would move on in 2 years when that's the resource they need. We'll be serving another population a smaller portion of our units will be available for somebody who might be transitioning out of homelessness. And they'll have a year-to-year lease. That you might think of that person as a younger person who's maybe able to stabilize their income through employment or improved employment, and they just need a month or two to get their feet under them, and then they're able to move forward and afford a market rent, maybe with some supports. So those two populations, year to year or month to month, but neither as that kind of transitional 2-year period.
I was talking about the homes that you have next to Homes Regional. There's an apartment there with food, and there's clothing, and there's like units, there's like rooms that they would go in, and they would stay maybe only 3 months. Is that a different way? Because if someone is stuck, and this was a woman with her kids, didn't have any place, so they put them in that unit, but then they rushed them out. So that's not that's different then.
I think you're referring to a shelter program there.
Yeah,
Amber.
Yeah, so shelter, it depends on the agency who provides the shelter program. They have different philosophies, but a shelter program is typically designed for 90 days. Like that's the ideal. But like you said, I mean, 90 days in this market is very, very difficult for a family in crisis.
Yeah.
But that is the standard. So if that's what they experience, that would make sense to me that it was a shelter.
Yeah, I just remember how the trauma, they're under a lot of pressure with the kids, and they have to find a job, and then I feel, and my next question is on the resources, because it's important to know that that's going to solve everything. Everybody's looking for resources, and with the Brevard Alliance, I feel like donations and individual help is part of it. But are you reaching out to corporation and especially on the veterans, when he said there's 188 veterans that are homeless in Brevard County, a county that we have a lot of corporations that are basically making money on the back of veterans, all the, Northrop Grumman and Lockheed and Boeing, and they're making billions of dollars. Are we engaged with them? Is the politician engaged with them? Are they helping? Our budget is $700 billion for defense, and we just need
one person from one of those organizations you said we'll make a space for them in our community on our advisory council and get them be a part of the solution. Amen.
So Are they any of the corporation involved in resolving at least the veterans part of it? I mean, they just awarded $14 billion and locally here. They're making a lot of money. Are they part of the solution, or no one is daring to talk to these companies? Because they can help a lot.
Yeah. I think the veterans,
individual companies are involved in different ways, but I think overall we as a community can express that expectation that they would be more involved.
Absolutely.
Amen.
Thank you.
Phil, you need to unmute. Phil, you're muted.
That'll definitely help. Thank you very much. And by the way, our time is winding down a little bit, so we have 2 more questions to go, and let's get those quickly. Thank you, Ryan. We appreciate your question. Next is Shannon Roberts, and again, try to keep it short. We'll try to keep the answer short so that we can end on time here. So Shannon Roberts, you have the floor. Shannon, if you're still interested, try unmuting yourself. Going once, going twice for Shannon. Shannon, we're going to pass to you and go right to Bonnie Eda. Bonnie, you can take this question if you would.
I'll make it quick. I was in a situation with a friend where we adopted a young couple that we found crying in Wickham Park. And it's a long story, but the question, I think where we failed at the end, we actually kind of was trying to get rid of him. And we did get her a place to live and a part-time job. But I think where we lost her was she was given a bicycle. It was quite a long trek, and I think in the heat and everything. So my question is public transportation. what, I mean, without, these people don't have cars. They walked everywhere. What are we doing about letting them get jobs and so forth, get places without owning a car?
Well, what's really encouraging, and I'm really glad to hear you say that, is that we just, Georgiana, who is the head of the TPO, just agreed to serve on our advisory council, and we're meeting next week with Terry Franklin, who's leading our SCAT, to have these conversations. And these are brand new. So the work we've been doing over the last several years to really cast vision, be clear on our plan, identify the needs going on. We're starting to see some real progress, I would say, in getting the right people who can make a dent in this problem at the table and in the conversation. So we're not there yet, but I am encouraged, and I feel we should be encouraged that those community leaders are willing to not only just have the conversation, but like, let us be a part of their strategic planning for their future goals, and for them to be a part of ours. So there's some real cool stuff happening.
And if I can briefly add on to that, I think it's a wonderful note to finish with, that Amber and the Brevard Homeless Coalition, under her leadership, has done a beautiful job of drawing community leaders together to address these concerns. Homelessness is the kind of challenge that can only be addressed when the whole community comes together. Circles of Care, the new CEO of Circles is a part of this advisory council. So Steve Lord he would tell you that Circles of Care, number one issue, of course, is mental health. Number two issue, homelessness. So he's come to the table. He's entering into the discussion. Just like Rayad said, corporations need to be a part of this. Government entities need to be a part of this. Wonderful organizations at the Space Coast, like the Space Coast Progressive Alliance, need to be a part of this. These kind of conversations, these move the needle. We're coming together in this great community, and we're making a difference.
Well, this has been a wonderful night for learning, a wonderful night for us to be educated by two very talented people, two people who are dedicated to solving this really, really tough problem. There is hope, because good things do happen, and they happen every day. People find their way out of homelessness. People can find a safe life, getting back into the normal flow stream of society. The whole idea of Providence Place, that's kind of a miracle, frankly, and that is something we should all be thankful for. And frankly, it's worth. We all like to call our representatives and complain and yell at them when they've done something wrong. This is probably a little reminder that those that live in Melbourne, or those that contact the Melbourne City Council every once in a while, should call them and say thanks. Thanks for doing the right thing. This is a terrific opportunity to call a representative with a happy face on and say thank you for doing the right thing. Maybe for once. Anyway, again, guys, if you were in a room, we'd all be clapping and saying thank you, thank you, thank you for what you do. And hopefully we will get more information, more people that can help, more people can contribute. And let us pause for a moment and reflect on these action items. Dispel stereotypes, fight the fear of homeless people in your personal sphere, your friends, your family. When you see somebody on the street, you don't have to turn away from them or run away from them. Panhandlers are likely not homeless, but that doesn't mean that they don't need help. Be humane, treat them with respect. They're human beings. And again, another action item is we may need to go to city council or county board sometimes to speak, because sometimes just one voice standing at that podium, looking at them in the eye, face to face, real human to human, can shift the needle. And I've seen that happen at meetings. And I know that what Jeff said is absolutely true. There are no cookie cutter solutions to this. For each of you who are listening and are thinking of what you can do, remember, all it takes is perhaps one day a week, perhaps, or one day a month. A couple of dollars contributed some little thing to help any of the organizations that you might find, like Daily Bread, like the Sharing Center, like you could go to the website, look at the Brevard Homeless Coalition.org website, and look at the list of different ways that you can contribute your particular talents or your dollars to make a difference to get people in safe housing. So this is a good night. I would like to remind everybody that our next First Thursday program is still uncertain, but we would sure love to see you here because, the Space Coast Progressive Alliance brings you programs like this one tonight that really make a difference, really can help people in need. And so we look forward to seeing you a month from now. Our first Thursday is March 7th. Thanks to everybody that joined us tonight. Thank you to our members. Thanks to those of you that are just joining us for the first time. Thanks especially to our panel, Amber Carroll, Jeff Noose. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Thank you again for all you do. And Keith, even though you weren't able to be here with us tonight, you're here in spirit. That's Keith Donald, Executive Director of Steady Town, another very worthy organization. So thanks, everybody. We'll look forward to seeing you next month at our first Thursday from the Space Coast Progressive Alliance. Good night, guys.
Thank
Thanks
you.
to all
Good night.
of you.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.